Hi there, and welcome to a supplementary edition of BAC-chat, you lucky people. Those of you who tuned in to the February live stream will know that we were supposed to have Lauren Diath from Thermatic with us, but unfortunately, due to some technical problems, she wasn't able to get onto the live stream. So she very kindly joined me for a session later to talk about her experiences of being a woman in a very male-dominated environment. Lauren is a field engineer, and so her experience of being a woman in this industry is quite different from those we discussed in the live stream. So it seemed a shame not to be able to get her to be able to share her experiences. So we did this extra video. Lauren kindly joined me on Friday night when she should have been drinking gin, and we had a little discussion about how she finds the industry.
So I'm Lauren. I'm a multi-skilled engineer for Thermatic. So I cover gas, electrical and air conditioning. It's a lot, to be fair. I cover quite an area as well, but it brings its own challenges, obviously. But yeah, it's a good job to have. It's nice to have all those trades under me rather than just one or two. Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, it's nice.
Okay. Now, you missed being on BAC-chat. We had some technical difficulties in the February issue, so Lauren has kindly agreed to join us for a supplemental for International Women's Day, which is March the 8th. We just want to talk a little bit about your experiences, because we have my daughter Hattie on and Jen, who works in another part of Thermatic, but you have a very hands-on experience in an engineering role within the building services industry. So I'd just like to talk about the things we talked about last Wednesday with you, if I may, and to start with, your very early experiences, so through parents, family, that kind of thing. Did you find any discouragement? I mean, did you have an interest in engineering and find any discouragement, or better still, encouragement for your chosen sort of passions in life, as it were?
Well, when I was saying that, when I was listening to the conversations between Jen and Hattie, I wouldn't say I had encouragement. The thing that actually drove me more was people not encouraging me, really. So I've always been like, someone telling me I can't do something is going to drive me to do it even more. I started off on an architecture background, so I did architectural design, worked with an architect, and basically I want to try and gain more experience like on site, really. So my dad and my family really are builders. So I said to my dad, could I work with him on site for like a week, maybe to gain a bit of experience. Obviously I saw the planning side of things, I drew the plans, but I wanted to get a bit more hands-on. Okay. And his words were like, no, you won't cope, you won't be able to take it. Later on in life, I think is he explained it to me a little bit better. It's not the things I couldn't cope with it physically. It was, I don't think he could cope with, it's the general builder attitude, maybe, that they, it's like that whole stigma around that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, so I could sort of see his point. But no, the background that like my work now, I've never, until I actually started doing it, I never looked at doing it, if you know what I mean. Okay. So I started off, like I said, with the architecture. So you look at services and it's the planning side, but it has always been an interest of mine, and the option came up for me, so that's why I took it. But no one's actually, been an influence really for me as such. But okay. Yeah, it's my own drive really.
And when that opportunity came up, was that something you snapped at? You thought, yeah, I could really do that, or were you a little bit more sceptical about that?
I had straight for it, if I'm honest. So I was actually working, my old company, the previous company I was working for, an MOD company, they covered quite a varied amount of things. I mean, not just obviously with the technical side, but there was just a lot of different aspects. And I was working with them on the security side to start with, and an apprenticeship came up it was electrical biased then. But like I said, because I looked at services, I was like, I didn't want to be doing, like the security side. It's not something I saw myself doing. It was sort of a step-in job because I'd lost my job at the time. Mm-hmm. So it was sort of, I took that on. I was only there for 6 months, really. The apprenticeship came up, and I was like, I literally just leaped at it straight away, and they took me on straight away. Although it was an apprenticeship, I was a mature apprentice then, as they call it. And but yeah, I was glad I went for it, to be fair, because like I said, I would have got the planning side. Yeah. So it was quite nice to see it like a bit more in depth, I suppose.
And was that within Thermatic?
No, that was my previous company. That was. Mm-hmm. So I did actually did a 4-year apprenticeship with them, electrical, which is where I started doing my air conditioning. I moved with them up to like Worcester area then, that was 2.5 years ago, on the condition that I took on the gas, because they'd had an employee leave. So I was like, I jumped at that as well, obviously, I'm not going to turn something like that down. But yeah, so that's when I started with them. I started with Thermatic just over a year ago. And yeah, I've not looked back since. So my role before in my old company was actually static. So it was just on, well, there was 2 sites that we covered, whereas here, obviously, it's everywhere.
Sure.
But yeah, so I'd never done a mobile role before.
Okay, and I clearly talking to Jenna about Thermatic, they've been very supportive and seem to be very supportive of encouraging diversity in presumably all areas within the business. Did you find that in your previous role throughout your career? Have you found that they've been supportive, or really have you had to push your way through that sea of men to get to where you want to be?
Do you know, I think when I started, it's not like they sold me this package, although it seemed a bit more, I don't know, interesting when I actually was told it, if I'm honest. Within a year, they basically they started us off, and it was an install electrician, so obviously you weren't just doing maintenance. A year in, they tried changing it to a maintenance role, which we weren't happy with, because it's not what I actually wanted to do. But it was what they said went, if you know what I mean. So we didn't really have a chance to have our opinion as such. They did go for the install in the end, because we'd been in college for a year, so they couldn't really change it. But there was a bit of an argument. Do you know what I mean? There was about 30 apprentices all in all, and to be fair, within 2 years, I think half of them had left. So it didn't look good from that point. But I found for the whole time I was there, it was push and push and push, and there was the only one that ever did. I think I gained the most out of that whole apprenticeship. I was the only female, so there was like 29 other guys. But yeah, that's one of the reasons I left, is because I just felt like I was fighting a losing battle all the time, and your opinion wasn't really heard. It was such a big company; you were just a number.
Do you think it was the size of the company though, or do you think there was sexist undertones to it that went along with that? Not trying to lay blame at people. Do you think it might have been a factor?
I do think it was slightly, and it's like I've had people say to me before now that I'm pushy, or like I shouldn't do this or shouldn't do that. None of the lads really got told that, but it's whether they, if I want something, I'm going to go for it. Like, and if I get told no, I get told no, sort of thing. But none of the boys did. They sort of stayed quiet. Whether that was because I was female, or if it's just me, I don't know. Do you know what I mean? Like I said, I'm going to ask, or you don't know if you don't ask. But yeah, I used to get that sort of, I don't know, the whole female in power sort of thing, and I'm like, it's nothing like that for me. It's just because I want to get where I want to get. Do you know what I mean? At the end of the day, this is one of the things that actually sort of led me to wanting to have this conversation. I run these training courses, and this woman on the training course, she was there with a load of her colleagues. They were all men, and she had to come first. She was driving herself to come first, because if she didn't come first, then that was seen as a failure by everyone. Whereas all the boys, all the guys, they would just, you don't need to come last. That was their only goal. And we find this time and time again, and that was really what we were sort of talking about in the Wednesday's BAC-chat, about this passive sexism. Nobody meant it with malice, and I don't think this particular lady thought it was sexism, but it kind of is, and it's those sexist undertones that change our perceptions, and hopefully challenge our perceptions as well when people take a step back from it and look at that. You clearly getting on well as an engineer there. There's no blockers these days to women becoming engineers. You don't need to be the size of a shed to lump coal around. If there's young women, girls at school thinking about a career in engineering, obviously the advice is go for it. But if there's that pushback, as Hattie was describing in the chat that we had on Wednesday, what would you suggest to them as their course of action? If someone's deterring them, you mean, from going for that option? As I say, I can speak for obviously my own experience, but whenever anybody's tried to not hold me back, you've got to make your own decision for starters. But it's just driven me way more. If someone was I don't know, not being so positive, I don't mean that's obviously the wrong way to say it. I don't know, it doesn't drive you as much. Do you know what I mean? So if someone's telling me I can't do something, in my head, it just triggers something to me, and I'm like, why? Why are you telling me I can't do it? Do you know what I mean? And I've always been like it from a young age. It's like, not if someone tells me not to do something, I'm going to go and do it. It's just whether there's no difference between me and a male, really. Do you know what I mean? And it's not like I'm quite a strong person, like physically as well. Do you know what I mean? But it's not. It doesn't really come down to things like that. I think it's more your attitude. Do you know what I mean? Like your mental attitude. And I wouldn't listen to anyone if they told me I couldn't do something. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, if you want something, then go for it. It's like, don't let anybody.
Sounds like good advice. If someone's already made you want it, go for it.
It is. That's, I mean, no one should be there to stop you. Do you know what I mean? You know, don't really care who you are. It's, if you want it, it's your life. At the end of the day, it's your choice. Yeah. So yeah, just do it. Like, I love, literally, I couldn't have asked for a better trade to be in. I don't think it's just like, it's you know, physically and mentally, it is challenging sometimes. But I like the challenge. Like, I have to think, and I like keeping my brain active. Do you know what I mean? So it's just like, it's nice. You come across different things every day.
Yes, so, you do. Yeah, I kind of miss being out on the road in some respects, not in others. The early mornings never really agreed with me.
It's a bit hard sometimes. Up at 3 o'clock in the morning, it's like I haven't slept yet. It's not good.
Yeah. Are you seeing positive change within building services industry? Are you seeing more women coming through? I mean, I kind of sit outside of it now in management roles. Do you think there's more women coming through? Is it looking better these days?
I do. From my side, I really don't see many women, like, at all, and it baffles me slightly because I love my job, and I find I just think it's a bit of a weird one that there isn't any more women. Throughout my apprenticeship, like at both the companies, like Thermatic and my old company, there was never another female. So for me, it's like, I don't know. Like, I actually went to it was a Travis Perkins the other day, and there was another female there. She pulled up in this van, and I was like, whoa. I was like, I was just shocked. Do you know what I mean? But it was nice. And I actually chatted to her. Do you know what I mean? It's like, you know, we were just generally chatting. Yeah. And it was just nice to see a female. Don't get me wrong, I've always actually got on with men better than I have women. But it's just nice to have, you know, someone different, really. Or I think women think different to men, men think different to women. Do you know what I mean? It's just nice to have like a different conversation sometimes.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it's a shame to hear that, actually, because, you know, from the conversation that went on, particularly on LinkedIn after the BAC-chat went out, there was a lot of positive comments of wanting to see more women in our industry, because it's 50% of the workforce, and we don't seem to have a good representation of women. I work within the BEMS industry. That's what this chat was about, but it does encompass all building services, and that definitely is the case. So it's a shame to see that you know, that's still not happening as much as it should. I'm sure after everyone sees this video on LinkedIn, it'll get shared around, and then you won't be able to get a job because all women will just want to do engineering after they've seen you.
They do. Yeah, I really do, because that's what I like. I do love my job. I do really enjoy it. Yeah. That's what I'm saying. As much as it can be physical, it can be draining sometimes, but you put in what you get out of it. Do you know what I mean? And it's you know, I was saying that with my old company, I worked there for long enough. I was there for like 6.5 years, 7 years. We used to have a lot of contractors and everything coming in. Not once did I see a female. And it's like, I was saying, I got on with the majority of them that did come in. Do you know what I mean? But it's like, there was just never a woman. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, you know, it is a shame, really. But so for me, it was always like a massive thing because I was the only female. So I was there only ever female apprentice. It's like I was the only one that worked for the company, or do you know what I mean? I travelled the whole of the UK with the company, and it was always like, you know, sometimes you used to get, it's nice to see a female. Other times you still get it now. They're just, I don't know, it's like they're baffled to see a woman turn up. But it does baffle me. But, you know, you just sort of take that as it comes, I suppose.
It's so strange that here in the 21st century, you still have people who are baffled by a woman turning up to fix their boiler.
Yeah, you wouldn't believe. I went to one site, and the colleague, I got there and obviously signed in, and I was like, you know, can you just grab a manager for me, basically? So she was on the radio and said to me, or she said to her manager even, she was like, oh, there's a female here to come and do whatever I was doing. And she was like, literally her tone was just like, a lady. And I was like, yeah. I was like, in my head, I was like, okay. So anyway, she came downstairs, and I was like, you're a female manager? And she's like, yeah. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, it just sounded a bit bizarre. And she's like, what do you mean? And I was like, well, you know, what's so different to me being a female engineer to you being a female manager? And she was like, I didn't mean it like that. And I was like, oh no, but you know, it's the way people say things sometimes. It's like,
and it is curious to see that there is that people don't mean it, but they, you know, they certainly don't mean it in a malicious way, but they do still think that it's a woman engineer.
Yeah.
And it's like, when you think about it, what a ridiculous thing to say. Of course,
Yeah.
it's an engineer.
But it's like, honestly, it's like 50-50. Some, like, you get this sometimes, like, oh, it's so nice to see a female. And I'm like, to me, I'm just there to do a job at the end of the day. It doesn't matter if you are male or female. But so it can make me feel a little bit uncomfortable on one side. And I'm like, well, you know, what does it actually matter if it's a female or a man? Do you know what I mean? Or, you know, then some people are like, a lady, like, really? And I'm like, well, there's no difference. I mean, it's just, it's so hit and miss. Like, I've had one bloke, I got to a job, and he basically said to me, he's like, your last male engineer didn't tell me that's what the issue was. And I was like, okay. And I was like, well, I've fixed it. Like, I've diagnosed what it is. And he's like, well, that's not what he said. And I was like, okay, I'll explain it to you again. And I was like, I fixed it. And I was like, I passed him my screwdriver in the end. And he was like, what's that for? And I was like, you're a man. I was like, you fix it then. And he's like, oh. And I was like, you know, it's just, I do have a bit of a laugh about it, but, you know, you just got to walk away, really, I suppose.
I've actually had the opposite of that. I was, a woman had broken down in the street once in a car, and she said, oh, sorry, I've broken down, can you have a look at my car? I was like, I don't know anything about cars. I'm not a mechanic. But you're a man.
Expect you to do it. I know. It's just cliche and stuff, isn't it?
What a strange world we live in. Do you feel the burden at all? I mean, clearly you do now. Of sort of, you are at the vanguard, at the front of women in engineering. Do you feel that you need to go that extra mile to represent women, or you just get on with your job and that just happens naturally? Yeah,
I was just saying a second. Really, I just do what I'm there to do. Do you know what I mean? I'm quite a chatty person. I generally have a conversation with like everybody I come into contact with. Really, so it's like I just not like, you know, I think I sort of make an impression myself anyway. So it's like I'm there to do my job, and it's like by the end I want them to know that it is sorted, or this is what's going to happen next. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. I think they just realise. I have had quite a good, like, you know, good amount of feedback as well. But it's like, you know, you seem to get things sorted when you're here. Not saying that other people don't, but it's just, you know, I only take obviously my feedback, and I just portray myself how I'd expect someone to do a job for me. Really, I want it done. Do you know what I mean? That's what we're there for. But so I just conduct myself in that sort of manner. But we get there in the end.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time, Lauren. This is recorded on a Friday night. Lauren has given up her Friday nights to come and talk to the world, although this won't actually go out till Monday. But thank you ever so much for taking the time to join me here. I obviously wish you every success and your future endeavours, and thanks very much for talking to me.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you. Thanks again to Lauren for doing that. This is due to go out on International Women's Day, which is March the 8th. Hopefully it keeps the conversation going. It's something we all need to address in every avenue of life, but particularly within the BEMS and the wider building services industry. Our next live stream is due to go out on the 31st of March. I'll put a video up soon explaining what the topics are and see if we can get some people involved in that conversation. In the meantime, thanks for watching.